This is the first, maybe the only virtual sanctuary of self-love for Bonnaroo. Today, I'm moderating this panel about digital wellness, mental health in the digital space. And I've got people on board with me here today who know a lot about that subject. So Melodi, do you want to start?
Sure.
Okay.
Hi, everyone. I'm glad to be with you today. My name is Melodi Lee, she, her, and I am a queer immigrant and a therapist of color located in Austin, Texas. And my passion is working with people with marginalized identities, and I'm also the founder of Inclusive Therapists, which is a therapy directory and a community centering the needs of people with marginalized identities. And we also offer monthly trainings for therapists on decolonizing mental health, and we learn and grow together. So I'm glad to be with you today.
Sick. All right. Dr. Joy?
Yeah, thank you so much, Hayley. I am Dr. Joy Harden Bradford. I'm a licensed psychologist in Atlanta, Georgia, and I am the founder of Therapy for Black Girls. And Therapy for Black Girls is an organization designed to meet the mental health needs of Black women and girls and to really make mental health more relevant and accessible for our community. It includes a therapist directory as well as a weekly podcast and a very engaged social media community. And so we really enjoy talking about things and engaging in activities that really help Black women and girls to prioritize their mental health.
Yes. Okay. Last but not least, Charli.
Hey, I'm Charli XCX. That feels weird saying it like that. I'm a musician. I'm British. I'm a songwriter also, and I'm currently out in LA, quarantining over here with my boyfriend and my two childhood best friends who are also my managers. We all live in one house. It's very fun and intense, but it's a good vibe. And, I'm very happy to be here and share my experiences and also learn from all of you guys. So thank you very much for having me.
Yes. Okay. All right. So where do we 2020. Great year to be focusing on our mental health. I'll start by saying this, and then I would love to hear kind of y'all's experiences, whether personally or for, clients this year. The first thing that I noticed was how I had emotional whiplash. I had whiplash of all persuasions. I was kind of like so used to moving at such a fast pace and racing from one subject to another subject, one job to another job, and city to city. When everything slowed down and came to a screeching halt, I learned that my baseline was hyper stressed. My adrenals were like tanked. Dr. Joy, can you talk about what are the subjects, the topics that are coming up most often in your own head and then with your clients?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, there's just so much. And that is such a perfect word. I think you use, like the whiplash of it all, because I think that there's just been so many things going on that overwhelm, maybe the best way to kind of describe it. So starting in March, we know all of the information came out around us having to shelter in place. I think that the prevailing feeling and emotion there was anxiety. Like, how do I keep myself safe? How do I keep my kids safe? But then as we've moved into later months, we know that COVID, of course, has continued, but we've also seen all of the things related to continuing acts of racism, continuing acts of police brutality. And so it really has just felt like, particularly, I think, in the Black community, that people just do not know where to turn. A question I have been asking myself, even as a psychologist, is how much of this can people handle? I have just been really, really worried about, I know that the human psyche is incredibly resilient and we have overcome lots of different things, but I feel like at some point there is a breaking point for everybody. And so I've just been really worried about, like, how do people keep going in the midst of everything that's been happening?
Yeah. I ask myself that every day too. Charli, I want to know, are you someone who, like, when catastrophe arrives at your door, you're like, shit, I got to get busy? Like, I just want to know what the questions you were asking yourself.
Yeah, totally. I mean, you know, what you said at the top, like really, really resonated with me because, you know, I think it's a music thing to, you know, be like on 100 miles per hour all the time. You know, in our normal worlds, we're traveling a lot, we're like juggling a million things, etc. But it's also a anybody thing. You know, I feel like a lot of people are running at 100 miles per hour constantly all the time, and you know, don't know what their kind of like baseline, like truly like relaxed self is and should feel like. And the album happened was because, you know, I did like my first 2 weeks of quarantine where I was like, you know what, I'm relaxing, I'm being zen. After the novelty of that wore off, I was like, wow, I'm really having to face myself during this time, you know, and that's really hard because it's like when all of the busyness, activity, constant questions and running around and doing things stops, really it's like you're kind of looking at yourself, you know, when you don't have all of that distraction around, you're like forced to take a look at yourself and say, okay, like here I am, and I can really like see myself right now without all of the other stuff going on. And you know, I think for me, I was saying to Dr. Joy and Melodi just before you hopped on, like I did use the album as kind of a type of therapy for me to deal with my own emotions and thoughts and feelings right at the beginning of COVID. But I also think I used it as a distraction.
I want to get into another part of this topic, which is all of us with the internet have access to a lot of information all the time. And the three of you and myself as well, we as well have access to all these people who, you know, we're able to funnel information toward. The biggest thing that I get is, well, I can't afford therapy. That's not for me. There seem to be all types of stigmas that are specific to different groups and sets of people. So Melodi, I'm curious if you can kind of start us on this topic. I want to know who those people are that are coming to you, and I want to know about people who feel that therapy is not accessible to them, or maybe it is accessible and they're so intimidated by it, or there's such a stigma around it. What do you say to those people that have never tried anything, to, you know, any creative outlet or any, you know, they're online and they're drowning in the noise of it all?
Thank you, Hayley. And I take a deep breath because I am touched and moved in seeing on social media all the ways that people are extending care and are also asking for care. So in my work with inclusive therapists, we center the needs of Black, Indigenous, people of color, the LGBTQ community, and people with disabilities. And we also honor the full neurodiverse spectrum. And these are the people that often find themselves kind of falling through the cracks when they are feeling unwell, either uncertain whether or not they can find care that really gets them, not only gets them, but honors and validates their experiences, or that maybe that care doesn't feel accessible, or within their communities, they have learned that care can be unsafe. One general example would be, for example, the mental health field is primarily white. And so for people of color, finding a therapist that is culturally responsive, culturally affirming, and has done their own identity work around dismantling white supremacy can feel like a big ask. And so going to therapy can feel risky.
One of the things that continues to come up as I'm learning more and more about mental health work and services is that, and forgive me if I'm speaking ignorantly, but I think that it seems like there's a stigma that is particular to the Black community. And Dr. Joy, I wanted to know if that's true. I want to know what your experience is with that personally, and how everyone can help center the needs of people who are, whether they're Black, you know, Black, Indigenous, people of color. I want to know how we can support each other across these communities and where these intersections lie. What are your opinions and your experiences?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you know, Melodi really kind of the nail on the head in talking about the fact that mental health care has not always been safe. And I think that has been particularly true in the Black community. I mean, there is a history of, like therapists being used to remove children from the home. So you say the wrong thing in therapy and then your child is gone, right? That's just one example. And so I think that is a part of the stigma, in that the system has been built for it not to be safe, particularly for Black people. But I think that there's also just a lot of stigma related to the fact that the Black community tends to be very tied to spirituality and religion. And so some of that has kind of butted heads in some ways. The idea that if you needed to talk to a therapist, that means you don't have a strong faith relationship, or that you just need to pray more, right? And of course, we know that you can do both of those things.
Today, Toyota is making it possible for us to help in another way that we had not foreseen. Their primary principle is respect for people, for equality, respect, and inclusivity. We are excited to award Therapy for Black Girls a Toyota Sanctuary of Self-Love grant to help promote their important mission. So everyone out there, please check out Therapy for Black Girls and what they're doing to advance this vital cause. I'm so thankful to the people at Toyota for helping us help reach people. Thank you guys.